Not bad, not bad. I think Mike is being a baby on this episode.
Oh.
It's the LSAT, not LSATs.
Don't go in the closet.
I immediately was like, you gotta be f***ing kidding me.
I know.
Look, we both decided we wanted to be casual, comfortable. Who is their client? But at the end of the day, Harvey has these lines he won't cross. Welcome to Suits on Suits. In this show, we cover the culture of law, legal concepts, and plot points that come up on the show Suits.
We're your hosts, Quinn and Jared Mayberry. I'm a partner at a big law firm, and Quinn went to Harvey's alma mater, Harvard.
Thank you, Jared. A high-pressure mock trial, a leadership battle, and a rivalry that could tear the firm apart. How far is too far when power is on the line? Can integrity survive in a world where power moves rule the game? And in the end, an unexpected outcome changes everything. What did you rank this episode?
I'm going to rank it a 4 because to me, I think that the show finally gets to a point where it's a series instead of a procedural.
I like that. I like the idea of that. In practice, I'm finding myself wanting answers. So
That's the point.
I know, but I give it a 3 because I'm like, give me the answers.
It's a series now. You got to stick around for the next episode.
You're making me wait for dessert? I like, give it to me.
Well, I mean, different strokes for different folks, baby.
No, I think that it's really evolved, and I like this season for that reason. I want to get a resolution to some of the outstanding questions. I feel like they've been stretching it out a bit too far for me.
See, for me, I think that's like a seasonal arc, right? They're trying to create an arc that spans the entire season, and to me, that makes a lot of sense. I think the bigger problem is going to be, where I actually thought the issue with the first season was, okay, I'm like dropping into a single show or a single episode, and it's totally self-contained, which doesn't allow for character development in the same way.
I agree with that, but it does involve resolution. So 3 stars. Fair enough. Well, let's move into our first topic. I want to talk about Jessica's leadership style.
I mean, it's impacted by everyone at the firm. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, as it is anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. It just feels like she's getting pushed around a decent amount in this episode.
Yeah. Before we do, though, I want to throw out a quick question. Question for the viewers. What percentage of managing partners at major law firms do you think were women in the 2010s? We've got 5%, 12%, 20%, or 35%. Let's give a second for people to lock in their answers. Answer C, 20%.
Whoa, that's higher than I would have thought, and still way too low.
I had the exact same reaction.
Yeah.
You know, I see why Hairdo wants to roll the dice, but why you?
You just went from 5 million to 100 million, and you're questioning why I don't want to sell.
If that's a sticking point, I might be able to go to 0 million. But the one thing I won't budge on is he gets disbarred.
Personal grudges win the day again.
If your only exposure to the law was this show, you would think that law is exclusively vendettas.
It's vendettas and power plays.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear a politician, we're a country of laws. If this is how it's dictated, it's a little scary. So one of the things that they're kind of debating, maybe throughout the whole episode, is do they settle or do they take it to trial? And I think the question for you here is, what are the potential risks and benefits around taking it to trial?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go to trial, there's uncertainty. So whenever you have 12 jurors deciding a case, much harder to know what they're going to do than the resolution you'll reach in a settlement negotiation.
Yeah, totally.
But in a situation like this, when the known result, the resolution via settlement is Harvey being disbarred, you don't care about the certainty.
Yeah, it's binary. You have no interest in that outcome.
You're going to roll the dice. We've also seen in earlier episodes that a disposition to settle too quickly shows weakness, and that's absolutely true.
Totally.
So when you're negotiating, obviously to the extent you can, you want to negotiate from a place of power. Putting your cards on the table and saying, I want to get the best resolution I can, so long as I don't have to go to trial, means you're going to get a bad resolution.
Yeah, you kind of lose all your leverage.
100% of your leverage.
Yeah.
And so you see this playing out in the real world in a few different ways, but ultimately, even if your firm doesn't have a trial competency, you need to have relationships with firms that do, so that you can refer the case out at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that goes into things leading up to the trial, But ultimately, if you don't have the credible threat of trying a case and a willingness to do so, you're going to look weak.
Yeah, and ideally, if you don't have someone who's really good at trying cases,
Yeah,
then
exactly.
you find someone that is.
Lots
Yeah,
of-
okay, so similarly, kind of how does the decision to go to trial affect the reputation of a law firm?
Yeah, and I started to address that, but if you're unwilling to go to trial as a law firm that litigates cases, you're going to look weak unless you have relationships with firms that do try cases.
Yeah.
So you either need to be able to do it yourself or you need to have good relationships with people that do.
Yeah, so effectively outsourcing the leverage. But
Yeah, a lot of
but you have it
successful
still.
firms outsource that
Yeah.
to trial firms.
Yeah.
That's a very viable option, but without solving for the trial competency, people aren't going to take it very seriously.
That makes sense.
There's not that credible threat at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we also see Harvey wrestling with the same issue, and then after much back and forth, they put it to a vote amongst the partners.
This is your decision. So by a show of hands, those in favor of settling?
One thing to think about here is almost certainly this firm's going to have malpractice insurance. And so I wonder if this would be something that would be covered by their policy.
Open question, but there will be tons of implications within the firm, even if it is covered. And the way they're setting it up on the show, they said each of the partners is going to have to personally pay $100,000 to settle it.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying
Yeah.
maybe not actually going to happen. It's going to come out of their policy, and their multi-million-dollar a year premium is what's going to come out of their pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Next year's premiums might be going up here a little bit.
Yep.
Now, all those in favor of going to trial?
So awfully convenient here. It's perfectly split decision.
I think they could have written that a little better, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got Harvey who's in the position to decide.
Yeah.
Do you see Mike's influence on Harvey in this situation?
I think that Mike really brings him to water here. He shows that taking the L is better for the firm, and better for Mike.
I think it immediately blows up in his face a little bit, though. Hardman, we'll get to this later, but Hardman kind of holds him to task for it. As soon as he decides to settle, Hardman uses this against Jessica and Harvey and, says, you've created this big problem. It's shown bad judgment. What's the resolution?
Yeah, but I think that the issue already existed. Whether or not they settled or whether or not they fought to the end, the issue was going to be enough for him to push for this vote. Either way, they decided to settle. So maybe we can take a step back and say, what kind of factors influence the lawyer's decision to settle or to take it to trial?
Way too many to list here.
Yeah.
A few factors are the individual's risk appetite. We've seen Harvey typically has an enormous risk appetite.
Yeah.
It kind of goes against that settling here, or aggressively goes against that settling
agreed.
here. In a situation like this, it's just going to be a matter of certainty.
Yeah.
Do the individual partners want to know they're going to settle for $100K now, or do they want to have the potential outcome where they settle for, $100 million split amongst the partners, or more realistically, their malpractice insurance later on? And Harvey has this enormous risk appetite and is willing to, take these enormous swings, yet we see him settle here. I think that it's showing a little bit of, it's both showing leadership and it's showing a bit of weakness to Hardman.
Yeah, it's funny. I think he's got to rethink. Normally, he can convince his client to take on the outsized risk because he's saying, I am the best ever. His client is now a cadre of lawyers and
himself.
And himself, but 50% of the lawyers didn't have any interest in the risk that he's talking about.
So if in doubt, play it safe.
I don't think that's true, but I think in this situation where that you can eat the $100K cost, I think it's the thing to do.
So you think there was some wisdom here? And
For sure.
I'll be honest, I wanted to push for trial, but I think that it's a no-brainer in this situation to settle this matter.
Yeah.
There is one other issue I'd like to raise. This lawsuit has caused some of you to question Jessica's judgment, and by extension, her leadership. Allowing this kind of dissension to fester hurts the entire firm.
The tension builds.
It does.
Therefore, I am calling a partners meeting, at which point we will vote. Either Jessica will retain her position as managing partner, or I will resume control of Pearson Hardman.
Bold position to say those are the only two options. So it seems like in a firm full of partners, there may be an alternative.
No.
Nope. Okay. Good to know.
Well, so do you think Hardman had this plan the entire time?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a no-brainer. That said, I still don't think that changes how Jessica and Harvey should have reacted there.
To your earlier point about, maybe there is a third option. Did they have another option here other than settling at this moment with what was on the table or going to trial and seeing this through to its conclusion?
I mean, I'm sure they could have. I still think it was the wise choice. I think, though, that it's clear these two, Jessica and Harvey, are not consensus makers, and that's going to always plague Jessica's leadership, because we get, at least the way that they tell the story, it's Harvey and Jessica making these decisions one-off, and if your power stems from a population of partners, it doesn't make sense to continue to just kind of dictate on high without giving them any information, because then they're going to get pissed and move on.
Yeah, I think that they're going to get pissed whenever the problem keeps coming to their doorstep. But in an ideal world, the leader is coming up with solutions to these problems, and that's their job as the managing partner.
Yeah, but I think it cuts to the point that vulnerability is helpful here, and I think more communication about what's going on, how they're thinking about the problem solving, communicating what the solution that they prescribe is and why they're prescribing it in a very tough environment, allows them to win over the hearts and minds of these folks.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's vulnerability. I think that that's strong leadership.
Oh, I don't think so, because I think it's talking about the moments where you may have made a mistake in the past. You have to be honest about it. And if you're instead trying to say, no mistakes were made, this was not an issue, you lose people's faith in your honesty.
Yeah, but I think that you can share that mistakes were made and come with solutions and start to steer the ship rather than try and make all of these decisions by consensus or by committee.
Oh, I don't think you necessarily have to do it by committee. I think but you have to be honest and open. And I think that's the piece of vulnerability that's required. They're ultimately going to be led to water in a lot of ways, like the other partners, because they, one, either don't want the power of making this decision, or two, don't feel like they have it. But I do know that if they feel like they don't trust you, or that they think you're dishonest, they're going to get rid of you as the leader.
Yeah, but it was never suggesting dishonesty. I think, though, it's incumbent on Jessica to come up with solutions and not just put this to a vote. I think that she should have been more candid earlier on, but paired that with prescriptive action.
So what you're saying is, before the vote, she should have said, there's going to be a vote, because that's part of how the partnership works. And here's what I suggest you vote for.
And why?
Interesting. Yeah, it's hard to do that to a bunch of lawyers who ostensibly know how to calculate the risk, but maybe they don't.
I mean, she's supposed to be in this day in, day out, whereas they're supposed to be focusing on building their books of business and generating revenue for the firm. Of course, you need to have a lot of emotional intelligence as a leader, but I don't think that this showed emotional intelligence. I think that she's punting on the responsibility here.
Whether or not she prescribed a decision at the time of the vote, I think the bigger issue is she wasn't vulnerable and communicative before the vote. And I think she should have given them information throughout the process and empowered them to understand what's going on. And I think whether or not, however she framed the vote with, this is what you should vote for, this is what you shouldn't vote for, I kind of think that's too late in the process to give that communication. I think it should have been, hey, this is my freaking day job from here until we get to the vote, to over the next 3-4 days, to explain to each, sit down and explain to each partner why I think we should go one way or the other, rather what's out there and why you should go one way or the other. Yeah, I'd be curious to get the audience's take here, because really the question, I think, is, do you tell them what to vote for, or do you give them the proper information to allow them to make the decision on their own?
Well, but I would disagree with that framing. It's, do you try and prescribe a solution? Of course, they get a vote. You don't get to remove their legal right to a vote as partners. But do you come with a suggested solution, or do you just put it up to a vote?
I think you can lead them to water without telling them.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, let's see what I would love comments. I want to see what other people think about this. Let's talk about the mock trial. So that's
or what did they call it in the show? Trial run.
The trial run.
They called it a trial run. They're like, we're big boys. This isn't the summer associate mock trial.
This is a trial run.
This is a trial run.
So it's a mock trial.
Yeah.
So question for the audience: when did mock trials originate? I'm curious. Do you know the answer to this one, Jared?
Absolutely no idea.
All right, so 4 answers, potential answers. 1800s in American law schools, ancient Roman courts, medieval English inns of court, or 20th century legal training programs.
Interesting. That would be amazing if it was just recent.
Yeah, it's like this shit works. It's a great idea to practice what you're about to do.
Yeah. It just started.
Yeah. Drum roll, please. All right. The answer is C, medieval English courts. So this has been going on for ages.
For a long... Well, the Roman course would have been older, but it's hard to get much older than that.
I didn't say for all of human history. But yeah, they used to call them moots. They still do. All right. Let's see it play out in the episode.
You hid an important file belonging to what was his name? Oh, yeah, a Lewis Litt.
Oh, yeah, a Lewis Litt.
Yeah, the one thing that juries really love is this self-indulgent smartass.
It's a winning strategy.
Yeah, every time. You know, it's funny. This is almost like a practice squad quarterback playing the opposing team's quarterback for the defense.
Yeah.
Kind of, how does Lewis's attempt to play Tanner show the importance of mocking the other party's personality and trial strategy?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
This is going to be a knife fight. It's going to be ugly, and it's not going to just be neat little logical arguments.
Yeah.
You have to prepare with the other side's tactics in mind beyond just, neat little legal arguments. It's how are they going to try and get under his skin? What are some of the tactics they're going to employ?
Yeah, I guess to me, it kind of is a little bit of a joke because great. So we're preparing for the fact that Lewis is unhinged and not going to be helpful to the case at all. And let's just hope the substantive argument is strong enough. Like, to me, I think what you're trying to show is you definitely want to mock the substantive arguments, but
I think whenever you're saying mock, you want to imitate or embody.
Yeah, you definitely want to imitate the substantive arguments that the other party's going to make, but his personal peacocking kind of feels like a joke.
Well, look, it's obviously they're adding it for comedic effect, and it's easy to poke fun at somebody taking anything too seriously. But if you're going to get all these partners in a room, you are going to try and run through a mock trial. You better take it seriously, and part of taking it seriously is embodying the characteristics that the other side is going to bring to the table, above and beyond just their legal arguments.
Yeah, but honestly, how realistic is this mock trial compared to what they would do at a law firm?
Not very realistic.
I was saying.
Yeah, but at the point that most law firms aren't going to bring all of the partnership in for a mock trial. They're not going to let this span days. It's going to be the principal who's going to be on their feet arguing this, and have somebody on the other side seriously arguing, and they're going to have a few people acting essentially as judges, focus grouping the arguments.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. In most cases, are they actually bringing in kind of de novo jurors who don't know the participants in the case? At
some point, and people absolutely focus group arguments, but I think people are typically going to start with trying these arguments. And again, it depends. Is this case being tried to a judge or a jury?
Yeah.
Is this on appeal? Are they arguing to a panel of appellate judges? All of those factors are going to matter. As a general proposition, I think you're going to start by pressure testing some of these arguments within the firm.
Yeah, but in this formal setting, it kind of feels a little silly. I think you would maybe I wonder if you would just test out your arguments generally to a few people in kind of an informal way. And then whenever you're really testing them out, you're testing them out to people who don't know you, such that they don't bring all the baggage.
Yeah, but this mock trial is more important than the real trial in many ways. They're trying to win over the partnership here. So is this situation common? Not at all. Are the stakes of this mock trial real, and do they make sense? Absolutely.
I give you that. That's one piece that I think was the actual audience for this was the partnership and whether or not they wanted to get rid of Jessica or Harvey.
Yeah, and do they want to keep them around? Have they committed fraud? Did they take these enormous risks? And I think they do an effective job winning over a lot of the partnership, and they're certainly not going to do that without taking it seriously.
Yeah, although the way they win him over is sending the
moving
opposing
on. Let's play the next clip.
Please state your name.
Harvey Specter.
Your full name.
Harvey Reginald Specter.
Well, as someone who has maybe a comedic middle name compared to you, who has the most boring middle name of all time, I don't understand.
That's a classic Jared joke. All build up, no punchline.
I'm just saying, when your middle name requires some explaining, you don't really want to bring it up in front of a crowd.
I think you've got a great middle name. I think it's cool that it's
I
unique.
love it. As a 5-year-old, I was a bit confused.
We've got a Reginald over here.
Yeah. No, I'm not a 100-year-old man. Mine is clearly the name they were going to give me if I were a little girl when I was born.
They will slot that right
they
in.
Just slot it right in. I was gonna be
a boy named Sue was heavy on the mind when they came up with it.
Okay, Ryan. We got 2 first names.
It's strong. So we're back to this question about vulnerability. We see Zoe telling Harvey that, he doesn't show enough vulnerability.
But in all the time I knew you, you never once showed me any vulnerability.
I told you how I felt about you.
But you never showed me.
I can't quit you.
I can't quit you. He literally told her.
Yeah, she's like, well, she's like, I don't believe you. She called you a liar without saying it, and he just didn't fucking internalize that at all.
Exactly. He's like, well, look, frankly, I didn't care, but I did the best.
He's like,
I
I told you. Well, you never showed me.
Well, yeah, but I only have so much time in a day.
Come on. This is amazing.
So, I had no way of knowing it's the truth. And you could be telling the truth now, but if you don't show the partner some emotion, they're not going to believe you either.
What do you want me to do? Manufacture a few tears?
I told you what I had to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, to his point, in the mock trial, I don't think they're actually looking... This is a complicated one because in this situation, they are really playing to a second audience than whatever the jury is going to be. There
are 2 audiences that matter.
Yes.
The potential audience at the trial, but then also the partners themselves. The partners aren't just a stand-in for the potential jurors.
Yes.
They're actually trying to plead their case to the partners.
Yeah, they're trying to, and the partners are trying to assess, holy crap, are we being led by a bunch of reckless folks, or do I actually trust these people?
Or reckless folks and or fraudsters, if Harvey committed the fraud here.
Yeah, reckless.
Fair enough.
Reckless.
All right.
Well, one is intentional and one is negligent.
Yeah.
Reckless.
Look, Harvey, when you're a defendant, you need the jury to protect you. There's no way they're ever going to protect you if they don't care about you.
So you need the jury on your side. Whether or not you're the plaintiff or the defendant, they're going to be deciding the outcome of the case.
Yeah. I think her framing is even more personal and maybe a little more true to the emotion of the situation. If the jury's on your side, on the plaintiff side, they want to take a torch to the defendant and they want to teach that person a lesson. If they're on your side on the defense, they truly want to defend you. It's not just being on your side. So I think using that language is helpful to understand the emotion behind the decision of the jury.
Absolutely. But we've talked about it before. We have 2 audiences here. It's the potential jurors, and then it's the law firm partners.
Yeah.
Not just as substitutes for the jurors, but Harvey actually has to convince them. Do you think that this same emotional pull will play on partners in the same way it would on a jury of, non-legally educated individuals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think the legal education is important here. I think that I would be, if I'm totally honest.
But give me a second to correct it. It's like, are they going to have a slightly colder perspective? I mean, it's something that comes up a lot. Whenever a judge is trying a case, the standing assumption amongst lawyers is that emotion is going to be less relevant than with a jury.
I actually think in this situation, they're winning over the partners through emotion, which is kind of the opposite of what you would normally see. The partners are going to be more reserved. They're going to be, the judge decided case is going to be potentially a little more rational or logical. But I think in this case, we're in a totally different world where like the partners are being quite emotional. I think their view of it is going to be quite emotional. And that's why the mock trial is playing to the emotion here. I think we can almost throw away the audience that is the jury, because neither arguments and these pithy comments and this kind of being a jerk is going to play well to a jury. And both sides are guilty of it. I
couldn't agree more. And so it's almost like you're saying this mock trial is war.
I'm saying it's a joke. And you're a joke for saying that.
I think at the point in time you've made the decision to get all of these people in a fucking room, you better not waste their fucking time by treating it like a joke.
All right, so kind of bringing this back down to earth. How would a lawyer, like Lewis in this case or Jessica in this case, how would they actually define their careers? Wins and losses, the cases that they take on and how important they are, their influence generally on future decisions?
It depends.
Qualify out the wazoo.
Wouldn't be a true lawyer if I didn't.
Yep.
That said, I think it's basically a sliding scale of two things, or maybe three things: magnitude of the case, how difficult the case is, and then whether you ultimately win or lose.
Interesting.
So it's like if you're taking on a huge case and you win it, I think most people don't care if it's not a hard case. It wasn't, it's like you have a huge win. Maybe the case was less consequential, but a really tough case, and you won. People are very excited about that.
Yep.
Losing an important case or an easy case is a tough loss. And so basically a sliding scale of those things.
I like how you took this from the perspective of the lawyer. I think for me, it would be how much impact I've had on my clients.
You gotta be f***ing kidding me. Whenever I said important case, I was talking about the impact you have on the world, on your clients. What a bleeding heart over here. Corporate attorney. I'm out here helping everyday folks. Doing my damnedest, taking pro bono.
I was going to say
tenants' rights cases.
Dollars in my pocket.
This guy's doing $1 billion deals.
Dollars in my pocket.
Easy for this prick to say.
Impact on my client, Glenn.
Yeah. Yet again, I want to get the take from the audience.
Okay.
Mock trial, something, if you're going to go in there, take it seriously, prep for it, really imitate the other side, or just go test out some legal arguments.
Yeah. Kind of like let the words speak for themselves versus how they're presented.
Finally, I want to talk about internal competition. Something we've seen come up a lot on the show, and it was certainly present in this episode.
I already did. You need men.
That's a mistake. Women love me.
Really? Because I showed them your photo and they described you as...
Just immediately talking over her. Wrong. Women love me.
They love it when I explain things to them. They love it whenever I talk over them.
That always works for me.
Yeah.
That always works for me.
Yeah.
You see, the one thing you have in common with Tanner is your hatred of me.
That is true.
But what you don't have are his skills. But that's okay. I'll go to somebody else.
Wait, Harvey, stop.
To be honest, I kind of agree with Harvey. Wait, no. I'm team lit. Team lit.
We already see a little bit of competition playing out between these two. I mean, it's been building since the start of this show.
Iron sharpens iron, Glenn.
Oh, well, you beat me to the punch. That's what I was about to ask you. Do you think this is productive?
Heck yeah.
Truly.
I think it leads to better outcomes as long as people have thick skin. But I think if you're going to be in a large law firm doing litigation, you better not come with a weak spine, buddy.
Yeah, of course you have to have thick skin. I think that a dash of internal competition is great, but only a dash. I think you need to be rowing as one force against the opposition. If you have all of this
At the
internal
right time.
competition on top of competing with all these outside firms, it's you against the world, then it becomes chaotic. It's like you need to really be part of this larger unit that's working together.
Quinn, great men are forged in fire.
Got a hardo over here. We've kind of completely swapped positions from.
No, I mean, I think the reality is when it's time to fight together, you fight together. But until then, you train through competition.
I'm not calling what you do with kid gloves competition.
I don't think it needs to be competition. I mean, look at the Spartans, man. They were going at each other. I don't think it needs to be with kid gloves. I think it needs to be legitimate. I just think that you have to realize, like, it can't be to demean or ad hominem attacks. I think the point is it has to be with a purpose, and criticism is helpful.
The only catch is that was an ad hominem attack.
I know. It does change it a little bit, but I think it was an ad hominem attack in pursuit of good, fair competition.
Well, the funny thing is, which I hate to find common ground with you, but we're kind of saying the same thing at the end of the day. It's whenever you're stepping out of the ring,
Yes.
all friends, you're on the same team, you know the greater objective. It's you and your team against the world.
Yeah.
While you're in the ring, steel sharpens steel.
Agreed. And sometimes you don't need to be.
Fuck, we're saying the same thing.
Sometimes you don't need to be on the same team. Sometimes you need to be a solo act. And I think that's where we're going to disagree.
And sometimes we don't want dead weight dragging us down.
This isn't some bank loan, Junior.
Get out. I got a trial to prepare for. And you know what? When you lose, do not come crying to me, because there's nothing on this earth that would be sacred enough to stop me from shoving your ass in the goddamn ground.
So is that the kind of competition we need?
Yeah, 100%. He needed him to be motivated.
You might
and
be
it
right.
ain't some goddamn bank loan, Quinn.
Because those are the real ground rules.
Oh, I see, now you're asking to get lit up. Somebody wants to get lit up.
Well, he lost all credibility there.
So then we see in the mock trial, things get really contentious, and Harvey confronts Lewis about his cross-examination of Donna.
Yep.
Or maybe his direct, I can't remember, but his examination of Donna.
Yep.
You crossed the line.
Do not do this to me right now.
You humiliated Donna. You kept pushing and pushing her for what? For fun?
Well, you think I enjoyed that? That made me sick.
You could have stopped.
You think Tanner would have stopped?
I don't think Tanner would have stopped there.
He wouldn't have stopped.
Yeah.
Travis Tanner does not give a shit about Donna Paulson.
You are not Travis Tanner.
I don't.
You did not have to
I did
do
my
that.
job.
In the mock trial, I think you're trying to judge the pieces of the argument to see how they fit together, almost like paragraphs of an essay, not trying to judge the full mock trial and the outcome of guilty, not guilty, decision for the plaintiff, decision for the defendant.
Well, I disagree. Again, one of the real audiences, and maybe the most important audience, is the partnership, which is who they're trying this case to. Second, even if that weren't at play here,
Which in most cases is not.
which in most cases it's not, but it is here.
Yeah.
But even if it's not at play, the witness's ability to hold up under hostile interrogation is incredibly important.
Fair. I think that's fair on this one.
And so it's like, I think the idea that, oh, Donna broke down, why would you go after her so hard? It's like, then don't bring Donna as a witness and find some way to exclude her from the trial. If you can't exclude her from the trial, then you absolutely should pressure test it.
Yeah, fair.
This whole thing is about saving you. Everyone is trying to help you because you screwed up.
I think that that's the single most powerful clip from this entire episode.
I agree.
It's the entire premise of this is the firm is coalescing around Harvey and his case, and is everybody trying to help him? Kind of disagree with that point, but I think everybody is either there to help him or they want to make an assessment about Harvey and his place at the firm.
So he needs to be a little vulnerable to understand what's going on.
He's got to be tougher than this. This vulnerability does not seem to be serving him.
I don't know.
This soft spot around Donna's cross-examination, it's like he's got to toughen up. This is what's going to happen.
It's understanding that he needs help. I think that's a piece of vulnerability that we're understanding here.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right about that, where it's, he's
not a solo act anymore.
He's not a solo act, and which raises the question, how realistic is this where, forget the details, but a firm really revolving around a handful of stars, and obviously support players having incredibly important positions, but, ultimately being a support player for those stars versus, I think being flatter.
I think there are firms on both ends of the spectrum and firms in the middle. I think maybe the better question is, if you were to assess it as a business, which one would you rather invest in?
Flat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think we all love the Lone Ranger who carries the weight of the world on their shoulders. From a business model perspective, get out of here.
There's no way. You wouldn't want to invest in that.
You have a couple of people who can come and go as they please, who control the fate of the firm. Bad business model.
Bad business model. Wouldn't be the partnership I'd want to join.
But this confrontation with Harvey, it's showing how, Lewis gets it. And I think him Harvey confronting Lewis, but then Lewis's response to that, I think kind of opened Harvey's eyes to what's happening here. It's like...
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Mr. Litt, do you resent Harvey Specter?
It's complicated.
No, it's... Do you resent him for being better than you?
He's not better than me.
I understand. It's so much easier to criticize someone else than it is to acknowledge your own shortcomings.
Confronting a potential witness and pressure testing how that exchange is going to go, valuable information.
Humiliating
a partner.
Yeah. No way.
Bad business.
My billables are higher than his. My client list is better than his.
I didn't ask you about those things.
What are you asking, Miss Pearson?
Does the witness resent my client?
If those two premises are true, I do very much question why Harvey's getting paid more than Lewis.
Yeah, raises real questions. It's also back to the internal competition. I think that it's at Pearson Hardman, I think it has reached a level that is unhealthy.
Do you think Harvey Specter deserves to be senior partner? Yes or no?
It's a big question.
Yes.
Do you think he's an excellent attorney?
Yes.
And as much as you hate him, do you think he committed this fraud?
Does any of this make sense? Only when you realize that the audience is actually the partners.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess for me, it's how does a firm's reputation kind of influence internal politics?
Yeah, I mean, some firms are going to be known as having a bunch of internal competition. Some firms are known as lockstep, which means everybody is promoted on the same pace, trying to promote a more collegial atmosphere. And so you, to some extent, know what you're signing up for whenever you're joining a firm, I guess.
And so then with that backdrop of how the firms fall across the or with the backdrop of the spectrum, what do you think this clip shows in terms of what Pearson Hardman?
Killers.
War.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Spartan versus Athens, I think
taking it seriously, super important when you are stepping into the ring, having the competition, but you got to step out of the ring and build camaraderie. It's like, it is insane to me that you would have a firm where the partners actively hate each other. Some of that maybe you just have to deal with for one reason or another. They both have great books of business that are complementary. You could explain it in a million different ways. It is a bug, not a feature.
The one thing that's maybe a counter to that concept, though, here is that they each kind of know their role in a weird kind of way. Like if I'm Lewis, I would have quit and left a long time ago, but I kind of think seems to be fine with it.
Well, you bring up a great point, which is they have kind of slotted into roles, but I aggressively disagree with the idea that Lewis is fine with it. We see him looking out for other jobs. We see him trying to attach his ship to...
Still shows up for those billables, baby.
Trying to join Hardman's team. He's trying to find his place and his discontent.
He's a kite in the wind, is what you're telling me?
Yeah, but he never misses billing opportunities.
I know,
in spite of
dude.
it,
He is
through it all.
steady hand. He is the steady hand here.
So I think that covers this week's episode. We've seen internal competition, Jessica's leadership style. Harvey and Lewis at it again.
Yeah, and there are real cliffhangers here. What's going to happen? Who's going to be the leader? In the next episode, are we going to know in the next episode what's going to happen?
Yeah, I want to find out.
Yeah.
If you stuck around, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to us. We'll see you next time.